Hey everybody, so my name is LaPrecious and welcome to my channel, Let's Talk with LaPrecious. So today I'm going to be doing a tarot reading based on love messages from the divine. But before I get started with today's reading, I would like to talk to you all about the rose quartz crystal. Now I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with the rose quartz crystal, which looks like this. And you can get your rose quartz crystals in so many different sizes. You can get them the size of your hand, the size of a locket, the size of this little pebble, or whichever size that pleases you or satisfies you. Now, when it comes to the rose quartz crystal, this crystal is really good at manifesting love, whether you want to be in a romantic relationship. It's good with self love if you want to pull in love for yourself, or it's really good manifesting love or manifesting romance, or pretty much just welcoming in the spirit of love. And this crystal, it's not an expensive crystal depending on where you buy it. Now, when it comes to buying crystals, you can buy crystals at any size, any shape, pretty much any tint of color. But it's always good that whenever you do buy a crystal, that you make sure it's authentic and that it's real. Because at a lot of spiritual shops, a lot of new age shops, or a lot of tarot slash spirituality shops, a lot of the crystals are not real. Now, real crystals, of course, are mined in the ground because crystals are pretty much rocks or minerals, so they're natural, they come from the earth. And that's what really gives crystals its power, its connection to the divine, which is found in planet Earth because planet Earth was created by the divine. And so make sure that if you really want your manifestations to be really strong and powerful, to make sure that you get the real deal because a lot of these stores, sometimes even on Etsy and Amazon, and not just the stores in person, they pretty much have rocks that's just dipped in plaster. And they look real, they may feel real, but if you probably get them checked out by a person that really knows crystals, they'll tell you, this is nothing but a rock or a piece of plastic that's just been dipped in plaster. But this crystal here is pretty much a real crystal. Now, a way for you to determine whether your crystals are real or not is, of course, by the look and the feel. But a lot of times, if you go into a legitimate spiritual store, and when I say a legitimate spiritual store, a lot of spiritual stores are pretty much set up by people who are either initiated in different spiritual traditions or religions, people who are gifted with different divination gifts or spiritual gifts, such as reading, bone reading, such as connecting with ancestors and other spirits of the dead, or initiates of different religions or spiritual paths within the world. And they could be anything, not just the ones that are connected to Africa or Latin America, and they could be owned by people who are connected to like native traditions or European traditions and so on and so forth. So it's best to usually go to like a spiritual expert, someone who really knows what they're doing and someone who can show accurate results from what they've given and from what they've done for people, and they'll be able to determine whether you have a real crystal or not. So before I close, this is a real rose quartz crystal, and this crystal represents love, romance, and self-love. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get started with our reading. Okay, so now I'm going to start off with doing a collective reading for singles and see what Spirit has to give you. Spirit of the universe and self, when it comes to the collective message for single people in the world, please give them an accurate collective message. Okay, so what I'm getting is that a lot of you are about to enter into some new relationships. I really do see where many of you are about to get a shot or an opportunity at love. Some of you have been single for a really long time. And when I say a long time, some of you all have been single for years, like maybe 5, 6, some even 20 years. But Spirit is saying that as far as the relationship drought that you've been feeling, that it's about to end, that you're about to have some suitors or possible suitors come your way that are going to give you some ideas of what kind of relationship or what kind of love you're interested in. Because Spirit is saying right now, the reason why a lot of you have halted in your love life is because you don't know what you want or you're not sure of what you want. So, Spirit is pretty much saying that now is the time for you to understand and realize that you have choices, that you don't always have to go down the traditional route when it comes to love and relationship or even marriage, and that you don't always have to date or marry the typical person to date or the traditional person to date or marry, that you can go outside of the box and outside of your scope and outside of your spectrum when it comes to love and relationships. I do see a lot of you letting your guard down. And a lot of this is going to be hard for many of you to do because you have been such a stern person, where you've been a person who has been so used to doing the same thing over and over again, living up to this standard, living up to this pedestal, or living up to this name or to this title that you built for yourself. But Spirit is saying, when it comes to matters of the heart, it's left you really uncomfortable, that you're not really comfortable being all that you are, especially when it comes to love and relationships, because you're not practically being yourself. It's like you've been trying to uphold or uplift this image for so long that it's no longer gaining you anything. It's like, yes, you've had plenty of suitors and plenty of lovers and girlfriends, and I feel like I'm speaking to a man with this, that you have had in the past, but it's like they gave you the gist of being in a relationship. They gave you like surface level or base level of a relationship, but they didn't really give you like that boost or that spark or that energetic, impulse that you're looking for. Someone that can keep you motivated, someone that can keep you honest and keep you on course, and someone that can just pretty much, get you going in life. So I feel like to a lot of men out there that are single, you guys are really looking for somebody that can like spark your interest, because it seems like in the past relationships, these were like phases that you went through, but it's like you're kind of bored of dating like the same type of woman or girl, and that you really want someone who's interesting and that has insight that could really help you like get on the right track, or someone that could really help you to be more motivated and be more inspired and actually be a good fit. Another thing that I'm getting is that many of you, especially with the men, I feel like this reading, it seems like with the first card I pulled, it was dealing with women. So the message to single women right now is that many of you that have been single for a really long time, you are about to start meeting some people that are going to spark your interest and really have you intrigued. But I feel like the second card was really geared towards men, and I feel like this one is starting to be geared towards men as well. It seems like many of you are about to become more in touch with yourself, more in tune with yourself, because some of you feel as though you've kind of been out of it. You've been out of the loop, out of sync, and you just not really in your routine or in your groove like you once were. And it doesn't really seem as though this is because of something that you did, but it's more so of like a outer body experience. I'm hearing that many of you need to get into a new or different environment, because it seems that throughout this period that you have been in, and it doesn't have anything to do with COVID, but it just seems like a lot of you have been maturing and growing and elevating, per se, elevating in money, elevating in life experiences, elevating in thought processes and maturity. And it seems like many of you are still in environments that haven't really caught up with you or don't really want to catch up with you. So, Spirit is saying in this moment, it's really time for you all to really get in touch with yourself and really get in tune with who you are, but to also find out who matches you. Find out who is in sync with you, who's more in tune with you. And if you need to move to another environment, and I'm also hearing, if not another city, a new state, possibly a new country. So I can see many of you within the next 1 or 2 days, and I know this is so short, but I can really see a lot of you in the next 1 or 2 days really thinking about getting a passport to maybe take a flight to France, or maybe a trip to London or Paris, or maybe to Peru, because I'm seeing where many of you are growing tired of like the one and done or the mundane things, and many of you are really thinking about taking that leap of faith and moving to another country, another culture, another land to really get more in sync and find out what matches you romantically. Because it seems like many of you are just not getting it wherever you are. So another thing that I'm getting with this love message is that many of you are becoming financially stable. And it seems like that's what caused a lot of friction within like past love relationships that many of you have had. And now I'm talking to men and women. It seems like many of you had a lot of friction and a lot of miscommunication and discombobulation and just a really difficulty in the interest and whatnot, because there was a lot of lack of finances going on. It just seems as though many of you weren't financially astute or didn't know how to manage your money too well, and that's what the other partner or the other person just couldn't really get down with. It's like the lack of finances, or there just not being enough finances being made. But it seems like a lot of you have been working on, getting your coins and getting the bag and stuff together, and it seems to be working out in your favor in matters of the heart, because this person didn't want to just shoot you down because you weren't financially on their level, but it just seems like this person really just wanted you to be stable for the sake of being stable, so that they can build a happy home with you, and not just build a home with someone who's financially unreliable and unstable, or not knowing if they're going to be able to have a 50-50 process, or maybe an a equal household where they're equally yoked, not just in love and interest, but also in finances. Unfortunately, I'm getting that many of you still don't have it yet. I'm still seeing a lot of overspending. It seems like with many of you, when it comes to relationships and love, there's just an over dependency. Now, I'm not saying that, being a gold digger is a bad thing, or being dependent on a man is a bad thing, but Spirit is saying that some of you are just really doing this too much. It's like you're relying too much on, and I'm speaking to women right now and in relationships with men, it seems as though you're depending too much on a man's finances to really take care of you, to really sustain you, and to really be there. Spirit is saying that many of you have just got to get it together when it comes to spending. Some of you splurge and spend way too much where your account is in the red or in the negative, and you're not even able to really keep up financially because you just spend so deep. And you're used to getting all of that back and some, that you're just continuously in this cycle of overspending and oversplurging. But Spirit is saying that it's time for many of you to gain some independency in order to have successful love relationships. The next thing that I'm getting is that many of you that are single are really hesitant about being in love. It's like you're so used to being you're so used to being rejected, and you're so shook, and you're just so at like a gas, because you're just so scared. It's like you're scared of being rejected. You're scared of being told no. You're scared of not really being allowed to be in a relationship, or to even be considered for a date or romance or anything like that. But Spirit is saying that many of you maybe need to reassess yourselves and to really see if there is a need for you to hold back, if there is a need for you to be hesitant, because many of you are just scared for the simple fact of being scared, and you really have nothing to worry about. You just need to go out there and be yourself, and to let love find you and to take hold of you. But I am seeing that some of you do need to be a little hesitant and kind of hold back a little bit, because there's a lot of self-esteem issues that need to be resolved when it comes to matters of the heart, because it seems like many of you still think that you're not good enough, that you're not lovable, you're not capable of being with a man or being with a woman. And I'm really speaking to women, not just heterosexual women, but I'm hearing bisexual as well, because many of you kind of seem to be having some issues owning up to your sexuality as well. So I'm also hearing that not only are you telling yourself, oh, I'm not good enough to be loved by a man or a woman, but I'm not good enough to be who I really am, where I like men and women, and I'm not really sure how to like fit or how to really like maneuver in those waters or maneuver in that. So some of you don't need to reassess. Some of you just need to get out there and be yourselves and stop being so scared. But I'm also seeing where many of you may need to really see if you're ready. Maybe if you need to check your self esteem, do some shadow work, and really see like what's on the inside that's hindering you from being all that you're supposed to be. So that's it right now for my single people. Okay, and so now I'm gonna go ahead and go to my people in relationships and marriages, because Spirit is saying I need to speak to people not only in relationships but in marriages as well. Spirit of the universe in itself, when it comes to the collective message for people who are married, please give them an accurate collective reading. So I'm seeing where there's a lot of discussions that need to be made, especially with matters of the heart. Because it seems like with many of you in these marriages, especially with women, I'm seeing where there's some wives out there who feel unappreciated, who feel as though they do a lot for their husbands, they feel as though they do a lot for their wives, and they feel as though they're just not being seen as someone who is good enough for them, someone who's enough for them. And some of them really feel like all they would like to hear is, a thank you for doing this for me, thank you for doing that for me. I appreciate your presence, I appreciate your love, especially with our kids, the way that you take care of them, the way that you feed them, the way that you hold them and put them to bed, and just everything that you do. It seems like a lot of females that are married seem to feel undervalued and underappreciated because they don't really get enough thank yous and they don't really get enough admiration from their significant others because they just feel like they're a woman on their own. And some of them feel like with these issues that they seem to keep having that they could just be Wonder Woman on their own, where they may consider divorcing you or may consider leaving because they feel like if they're going to be in this relationship pretty much doing all this work, then what's the whole point of being married? But Spirit is really saying that to hold on to your marriages and to not give up just yet, because there are some changes that need to be made and some self evaluations that need to take place, because I am getting that there's some self work that needs to be done, especially on the husband's part, because what I'm getting is a lot of selfish energy and a lot of self seeking energy as well. It seems that many of you seem to have husbands that are just very conceited. Like it's more so about money, it's more so about drawing up different issues and clauses. And I know it sounds funny how I'm saying issues and clauses, but it just seems like they just seem to be wrapped up in a lot of mess. I'm getting a lot of professional men that a lot of you seem to be married with, like doctors, lawyers, stockbrokers, people who are like in the upper echelon sector of things. They just seem to be more into their affairs more so than they are into you, because it's like, yes, they pay the bills, or yes, there's an equal amount of bills being paid on both sides, and yes, there's this family and there's this look, but it's like, as far as like individual love being given, it's not seen there all the time, or it's just not really being given. So it just seems like here there's just a lot of self work that needs to be done, because it just seems like many of you are dealing with a lot of selfish and self seeking husbands that really need their eyes to be open, and they really need to evaluate their stance on love and relationships and with their marriage with you. There's a lot of unfair treatment going on as well. I am getting a sense of hopelessness, and I'm getting a sense of fear as well because many of you have just been you've been sustained in these relationships where you've been taken care of properly. You've been given allowances, you've been given money, you've been given pretty plenty of opportunities, but it there just seems to be a lot of unfair treatment going on because I'm getting a lot of hush gifts. It's like you've seen a lot of sneaky stuff done in your marriage where you've been cheated on, where you've been disrespected, where you've been hurt, where you've been neglected. But it's like the husbands have been giving you like cheat gifts. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to cheat on you, so I'm going to give you a Rolls Royce, or like a diamond watch, or some type of trinket that they're giving you to kind of excuse their mistakes that they've made. And some of you have even been like bullied or disrespected or even hounded by your husbands. So it just seems to be a lot of unfair treatment, a lot of mistreatment going on. And there's just a lot of sorrow going on within these marriages where a lot of these things are not being discussed, but due to them being given nice gifts and whatnot, that's why a lot of this stuff is not being resolved. I do see though eventually where in many of you all's marriages where there's gonna be some common ground. So there is gonna be some common ground in the relationship where some discussions are going to be had, some counseling is going to be needed and it's going to be used. And it's really going to benefit the relationship because it seems as though the wife here, she's already what she's supposed to be, but it's like the husband here is not really seeing her as an equal, but it's saying like eventually he is. Because I'm seeing where a lot of women that are in marriages right now, they're dealing with a lot of overly masculine men. It's like men who are just so into themselves and being the authoritarian in the family or in the house and being the person who calls the shots, who pays all the bills, who pretty much makes all the money, who's like the breadwinner, the caretaker, and whatnot. But it's just as though he's not really seeing the wife as like the equal mate. But it does seem like eventually, as time goes on, with enough counseling and with enough spiritual consultations, because I'm seeing where a lot of this stuff is really spiritual. It's more so materialistic, but there's also a lot of humanity that's going to be regained in these marriages. So that's a plus. But I'm also seeing where a lot of women who are in these marriages will need to seek out a lot of self love. When I say seek out self love, that they'll really have to see themselves as an individual and stop identifying themselves based on their marriages or who they're mated with or who they're partnered with. Because I'm seeing where many of them are just not valuing themselves enough, valuing yourselves to who you really are, or really like making sure that your cup is being filled. It's like we put up with so much for so long, or where many of you have had the go along, get along attitude that has really depleted your cup and has really sunken and drowned out your cup, where you almost have nothing left to gain or really nothing left to really give or nothing to lose. It's like you have nothing to give, but you also have nothing to lose. So it's kind of like empty on all sides. But Spirit is saying that many of you really need to uphold yourselves up to high standards, to start meeting those high standards of these men that you pretty much measure yourselves based on. Because how can you have high standards for a man that you want to be with, but you can't hold yourself up to high standards where you could be a woman that's going to be proud of yourself, that's going to love yourself, that's going to adore yourself, it's going to be where you're supposed to be, or pretty much a woman who's going to cherish yourself. But once again, I'm seeing where financial stability as well as home stability needs to take place as well. I'm hearing that many of you argue a lot in your houses and when I say arguing, it's not so much as like consistent arguing or arguing with the husband as in like nagging him, but I'm feeling like a lot of you are really petty. Like a lot of you have a lot of petty energy where you just want to fight for nothing or fuss for nothing and just really kind of cause chaos and madness, whenever need be, just to kind of have a moment and whatnot. And Spirit is saying that that's why many of you are having a lot of these stresses because it's like, due to you not getting attention or due to you being taught that's the way to get attention, that's kind of what has y'all's marriages kind of flaring up in flames or flaring up in anger or discord and whatnot, mainly because of the attitudes and the pettiness and the stinginess of feelings. Where when it's time to discuss things, you're kind of biting your tongue or being pert and not really opening up about anything. But I'm also seeing where some financial stability needs to take place as well, where a lot of women also need to kind of like gain their own financial independency. I'm hearing that many of you should think about starting up like side businesses. I'm hearing like boutiques or like floral stores or like flower shops or maybe jewelry boutiques or jewelry stores and things like that, because that'll really level out the marriage or really level out the relationship once you have your own thing going alongside the husband having his own thing going. That's when everything is going to equate to love, peace, and happiness. So that's pretty much it for my love messages from the divine. I hope you all like this message. Don't forget to like, leave a comment in the comment section, and have a good day.